What is going on, everybody? We're back with another tier list, and this is going to be a big one because today we're going to be ranking every single famous bouldering project from least to most aura. Now we have over 40 boulders to get through, so we're going to be jumping right into it, starting from one of the most famous bouldering projects around right now, 6 Degrees of Separation. This has actually been a known project for quite a long time, until Aidan Roberts was converted into an American and started trying it. The only footage that exists of this boulder is on Aidan Roberts and his Hobbit friends' Patreon. So out of respect to them, I am going to wheel rockify this footage, because I probably shouldn't be showing something that's behind a paywall. This boulder is super interesting. At first glance, it kind of just looks like a standard board climb with bad crimps, but it is actually anything but. The amount of subtlety that goes into this boulder is absolutely insane. Aidan has spent the past 2 years just figuring out beta that works for him. And the accuracy and nuance in which he climbs this is genuinely insane. If only you guys could see what I'm seeing right now, because it is beautiful. And regarding the difficulty, Carlo Traversi, who probably knows Yosemite better than anybody, said that just doing the individual moves is in itself a step up for the difficulty in bouldering progression. It's unclear what Aidan will give it once he does the boulder, but as somebody who's working on their V6 slab project, I personally feel like Aidan should give V18 for this, because with how well this boulder suits him and how limit it looks, if he gives this V17, then pretty much all the other V17s should be downgraded. So we're going to be starting off strong with 6 Degrees being comfortably at the top of maximal aura. Next we have the Invisible Man project in Hueco Tanks. Now this climb actually does look quite like just a tensiony board climb with some of the most shitty crimps imaginable. Now the difficulty of this is probably around V16, but what really makes this boulder stand out is that it was tried by a prime Daniel Woods. And if you know anything about Daniel Woods, this style of climbing is his shit. Like, this is the same man that gave pre-chipped Hypnotized Minds V15. And so if he wasn't able to do it, you know this shit is fucked.
Do you think this would be harder than the game if you did it?
Yeah, it's way harder in the game.
But having a solid V16 that's really just like straightforward, bearing down on crimps, I think would be pretty cool. This boulder also doesn't seem very contrived in any way, so I think it's pretty fair to put this into heavy aura. Up next we have the Dumby project, also known as Defying Graffiti. Now as we learned from Realm of Torment, Will Bosey has quite the affinity for Choss, which I fully respect, by the way. I'm a bit of a Choss goblin myself, but this boulder, while the original line actually looks pretty good, the graffiti is just so ugly, and this low feels a little bit just like doing hard shit for the sake of it. Obviously the jug rail is a lot more obvious of a starting point than like the 2-move V17 into it.
But your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should.
So all respect to Bosey and his love for Choss, but this one's definitely going into the low aura tier. Moving on, we have Lile, which is the first of many Barefoot Charles Choss. This is one of the most ridiculous boulders on this entire list. Apparently the grade breakdown is like 3 V13 moves in a row, which just seems absolutely ridiculous. This is one of those climbs where I feel like not a single soul on earth besides Barefoot Charles wants to try this.
What the?
And it is extremely contrived. But because it's on the Big Island, one of the most glazed boulders of all time, and because it's just so ridiculous, I'm gonna put this one into the bottom of decent aura. Speaking of Barefoot Charles Choss, next up we have Les Meteores Assis. Now this boulder actually looks pretty sick, I can't lie. This movement shoulder Gaston thingy into the undercling looks so cool. And the entire line looks quite sick. This is a rare example of a Barefoot Charles boulder not looking like the most unenjoyable thing imaginable. The difficulty is supposedly around like V16, so I don't think it quite makes it into maximal, but because it has some of the best movement I've seen in a project in a while, I gotta give it to low heavy aura. Next we have the Ear of Life project, located in Bishop. This was one of the last pure lines on the Grandpa Peabody boulder. But actually, as I've been making this list, I have become aware that Pablo Hammock has actually done it. And he posted the most nonchalant thing I've ever seen anybody do. Guess I feel sorta lucky to be able to unlock a couple moves and piece them together for this face. No mention of the boulder's name, grade, or anything. What a legend. We're gonna be putting this one into the maximal aura tier. The last relatively pure line on Grandpa Peabody, that has to have a lot of aura. Now we have another Aiden Roberts project, Distillery. The low start to the low start of Distillery. A like one move V11 in Yosemite Valley. This thing looks messed up. The mid start that Aiden Roberts first ascended, he gave like V14, but apparently Katie Lamb has put a bunch of sessions into it and hasn't been able to do it. And Aiden has yet to link the very low start to that mid start. So this thing's definitely super messed up. It seems Aiden still thinks this is like V17 and maybe easier than 6 degrees. But I definitely think this would be like a step up in difficulty in the world of like crimpy power endurance boulders. And I think being in Yosemite is just like a cheat code for having a lot of aura. Just because all the boulders look mega and it's pretty unexplored still. So we're also going to be putting this one into maximal aura. We have Austin Hoyt pogging out of his mind after sending the Big Bad Wolf, which is the first V15 in New York. And the Fairy Tale project is a potential V17 project that links the Big Bad Wolf into a harder exit. Now, I'm an absolute slut for complex roof problems like this, and I'm also heavily biased towards the Northeast. But I do think because it is quite contrived and it also doesn't have the same level of notoriety or mystique as some of the other boulders, we're going to be putting this one into the top of decent aura. Next, we have the one and only Nale project on this list called African Star in Eswatini. Now, this thing looks fucking incredible. This is one of the best lines I've ever seen with an absolutely gorgeous background. And apparently this line has dynos, hard climbing, and small holds. Now, what do you get when you mix Nale Hukataival, a prime bleed out spot, and one of the proudest lines that I've ever seen in my life? Well, you get a maximal aura project on your hands.
It's just absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Speaking of king lines, next we have Ghost Circles into Kang the Conqueror. Now, if you didn't see my V17 boulders tier list, you might not know about my home crag, Lorimer Park, which has the potential to be one of the shittiest crags in the entire world. All the boulders are incredibly shitty link-ups. It's a drop-off cave. The rock is choss. The grades are soft. It's a pile of choss that we all love. And two of the hardest lines on this boulder are Ghost Circles, FA'd by Ben Wheeler, and Kang the Conqueror, FA'd by Noah Wheeler. No, Noah did not name this after me. Or did he? And I realized that it's actually possible to link these two together. But as a Choss Goblin myself, I am formally announcing that linking these two boulders will be my lifetime project. And nobody dare try to do this before me, or I will come chip your project. That being said though, we're gonna have to put this into the bottom of low aura. Just kidding, Lorimer Park best crag, baby. Okay, moving on, we have another Will Bosey project. This time it is called Maritime Sit. This is a sit start to, I believe, a V12 put up by Dan Varian that is apparently absolutely nails, because I don't even think Will Bosey is able to repeat the 12 in this video. The line definitely looks pretty decent, but nothing extraordinary, and the movement looks pretty cool, so I feel like the top of decent aura is fair for this one. Up next, we have the Get Railed project. First of all, fantastic name. The only information we have on this boulder though is from a tension video that was posted a while back, and I mean the line is okay, but for some reason with how it looks in the video, I just don't really think it's very inspiring. The video has really bad lighting, and the boulder kind of revolves around this like traverse to a big move, and I just feel like it's not very striking and doesn't have very interesting movement either. Plus, I saw a YouTube comment that said that there was a bunch of other projects near here that were of a lot higher quality, so I'm gonna be putting Get Railed into the low aura tier, even though it has quite a fire name. Next, we have Creature Extension. So this is gonna be the V16 Creature from the Black Lagoon, located in Rocky Mountain National Park. But instead of exiting the V10 Two Tongue, you exit this V14 called Two Tongue Skeleton. Now, the only reason I know about this boulder is because apparently Carlo Traversi had one of the worst punts ever on this, falling on like a really easy move after doing like the V16/17 a while back. Now I do think it's kind of cool that Carlo was able to do such a hard boulder, or almost do such a hard boulder like back in the day. That could have been like one of the earliest hard 16s or soft 17s out there. But given the fact that Creature seems to be pretty soft for 16, and the fact that it's completely contrived and just revolves around a different exit, I think this one unfortunately is also going to be going into the low aura tier. Next we have the Spectre Arete. Spectre is an amazing looking V13 in Bishop. And apparently the arete to the right of it is a pretty like next level project. The only information I have on this is Dan Beal saying he linked like the low moves into like what is supposedly the stand start, which he said felt like it was like V15 into another V15. I've also heard Austin Hoyt say that he's pretty confident that this is what V18 feels like. And I'm pretty confident that this line will eventually go. I just wish we had some more information about how hard it is, or have somebody first do the stand. Given its sheer difficulty and the fact that it's pretty pure and on an amazing tall boulder, I think this one has to go into maximum aura. But this is one that I really hope to see more pro climbers on soon. So moving on, we have the Multiverse Low. Now the Multiverse is low-key like one of my dream lines. It is absolutely incredible and features like some insane movement, and I think it's very power endurance-y too. Apparently you're able to do like a bunch of different moves into the start of Multiverse, but to be honest, I have a feeling that it would be like a lot less obvious of a start. I couldn't find video of anybody trying the low, but my guess is it probably would look pretty contrived. So I think I have to put it only in decent. If there is an obvious start below this, I think this could go like pretty high up. I just don't really see it being the case at this point. Okay, so next we have an unknown V16 in Bishop. So this boulder I literally saw in like a Ross Fulkerson video, so I don't even know what this one's called, but it looks incredible. And it has Jimmy Webb climbing on it. So, you know, I feel like it has to go into heavy aura. Anytime you have Jimmy Webb climbing on a mega line, you're in for some heavy aura. Moving on, we have Imhotep Assist, a low start to a famous boulder in Fontainebleau named Imhotep du Sol. So this is another like pretty next level project. The stand is already like V14 and is this like crazy compression problem on like pretty bad slopers, it looks like. Of course Adam flashed it, but I think he's like really good at this kind of compression style. Apparently Camille Coder, you know, who has done Soudain Soul, so he's like pretty freaking strong, has spent over like 100 sessions just to do like one of the moves of the low, which is just crazy. I haven't seen that kind of dedication since Vision took like 800,000 attempts to beat Silent Club Step. But to me, I think most of the boulders in the maximal aura tier feel a bit more striking than this one. So I'm tempted to put it in heavy, but I don't know. What do you think, Adam?
I absolutely love it. I think it's the most motivating boulder I've ever seen.
Okay, well I guess that settles it. Maximal aura it is. Next we have Space Cadet Low. This is an incredibly sick and complex low start to Space Cadet, which is an incredible V14 in Switzerland. Dave Graham is like super close on it, and you know, just like Nale or Jimmy, Dave Graham definitely adds a tier all on his own.
I'm the master of my own world.
The only bad part about this boulder, I think, is that a little bit contrived, because if you go straight up, it's like a V15 called like Captain Nemo, I think. But here you like just traverse across into Space Cadet. So it does lose a tier for that, but I still think heavy aura is fair, especially because of how sick the movement looks. Now we get to Alphane into Trip to the Moon. So this is literally just Alphane, except instead of traversing all the way to the left, you go kind of straight up into this boulder called Trip to the Moon. Now low-key, I do think Trip to the Moon by itself is pretty cool, especially how exposed you are at the very top, which is something you don't get in the original Alphane line. But to me, like similar to a lot of other boulders with alternative exits, these projects I think are always going to be kind of overshadowed a little bit from the original line. And so even though it's harder and a little bit more exposed, I feel like this is still kind of probably in low aura, because I really don't think many people will care if it gets done. And most climbers won't put that much time into something that's this contrived. Up next, we have Tunluft, which is a potential V15 in Sweden, I believe. It's been worked on a lot by this guy named Eric Grandelius, like a while back. The boulder does look really good, but I'm not sure if I'd call it world class. And my guess is not very many people care about this boulder or even know about it. Like, I don't even know who Eric Grandelius is, but I do hope he puts this up because it does look really cool. And this might be the new hardest thing in Sweden, perhaps? I don't know. Bottom of decent is fair. Next we have Zazen Low in Squamish. Now I really love Zazen. This setup into this huge like board style cut feet move is like super sick. The line stays pretty low to the ground for most of it, but as a whole it does still look relatively striking. Climbing history lists this as like V17, but I think I remember Ethan Salvo saying that the low moves are like absolutely fucked. And obviously he's like insanely strong, so perhaps this could be also bordering on V18. It does lose a little bit being low ball for most of it, but I think the movement's great, and as a whole the boulder is pretty striking, so I think in the middle of like heavy aura feels about right. Barefoot Charles is back with La Salith Wall Low, I believe. This is the boulder he was trying in Magnus's video, and again, surprisingly, this boulder actually looks pretty enjoyable to do. He does this like huge helicopter cut loose move onto this like pretty decent crimp. I think this is like the easiest of his projects, which isn't saying much because, you know, he's working on the most fucked shit of all time at all times. But I think this is just like a really freaking quality line to a low start that's already pretty cool. And I do think that this is like the full line and not contrived. So I'll be putting this one into maybe the top of decent. Following this, we have a low to another famous climb, Hypnotize Bears. So this is going to be like Hypnotize Minds, except you start at Bear Toss, which is in itself already V13. So it's like V13 into V16. Now Hypnotize Minds is incredible. Probably one of the best V16s out there. Because I do feel like the start of Hypnotize Minds is probably a bit more obvious than like this traverse sequence, but it's not as contrived as some of the other things on this list, and I feel like Hypnotize Minds is kind of just gonna carry this. Hypnotize Bears is also a funny ass name, so we're gonna put it into the bottom of heavy aura. Next we have Ice Knife Low to the Low. Now I don't know if this is an actual thing or if like Drew and Tristan Chen were just trolling, but like at the end of the video of them checking it out, they're saying there's potential for an even lower start, but to be honest they're like pointing into this like cave thing, and I just feel like it'd be like super dabby and like not obvious at all of a start.
You got secret V17 super proj down there. Oh my god. It's at least maybe V18, man.
So even though I think the Ice Knife is a really cool boulder, I can't give it higher than like the top of low tier, I think. Now finally, we're gonna be getting to what is the granddaddy of all bouldering projects, Jellyfish at 45. Just kidding, of course I'm talking about the famous Sisu project in Finland. This thing has aura maxed, I think, more than any boulder in history. It's tall, it's pure, it's striking, it's on the edge of possibility, and it was discovered by none other than Nalle Hukkataival. Genuinely, what more could you ask for in a bouldering project? I feel like this is God's version of like Eternus, just something on the edge of human possibility for future generations to look at. And to top it all off, apparently Sisu is a Finnish word that means like stoic determination, which if this ever gets done, that climber would probably have to embody Sisu more than any other climber that's ever lived. Sisu sits comfortably into the generational tier. Next we have the Monster Project. Now I don't have much information on this thing except that it's located in Teruel, Spain, and Chris Sharma has been trying it. The line does look pretty damn mega, which is expected because, you know, Chris Sharma's trying it. And I really hope more information comes out about this at some point. I don't know if Chris is still trying this, but hopefully he's not too busy trading crypto to open up some new lines like this. We're gonna be putting this one into the middle of heavy aura. Alright, after this we have the Badger Cove Project. This is probably one of the harder ones on this list. Will Bozy has put some time into this and has not even been close to doing all the moves, and he thinks it's around, I believe, like V18. But I think what makes this even more insane is that Will Bozy, I think in a recent podcast, is pretty confident that he'll never be able to do it, or at least he doesn't want to put the time into doing it, and he's arguably like the best boulder around right now. So this definitely feels like quite a step up in bouldering difficulty. The line, even though it's probably some shitty link up in this limestone cave, it's like really tall line. The rock looks pretty chossy.
Come on.
But you know, what can you expect from UK limestone? Mark my words, I think Matt Mendez is gonna send this in May of 2031. Putting the prediction down right now. Honey Badger project is probably gonna go into the very bottom of maximal aura, just because the line's like a little chossy, but in general it looks like a pretty good line and an absolutely fucking nails one. Also, I'm a big fan of Honey Badgers, so it gets some bonus points for that. Moving on, we have the Die Hang project. This thing looks absolutely incredible. The grade breakdown is like 8B into 8B into 8A plus, which is first of all crazy and an awesome breakdown. This thing looks amazing. It is a little bit of like a traverse, which brings it down just a hair, but the rock quality looks awesome. The movement looks just incredible. And I'm a big Ryuchi glazer myself, so you know, I gotta give bonus points for that. Also, just listen to the sound of this in-cut crimp. Oh my god, it's just what dreams are made of. It's what dreams are made of. He's going into maximal. Yeah, so this is the low start to Moonlight Sonata V16. I'm not sure if Taylor McNeil is still working on this. I feel like Matt Foltz would have a really good shot at this one. To be honest, this is definitely like a me problem, but like I don't like watching people do boulders that I'm physically not able to span. You know, my span is like 4'11", 5 feet, and I've heard you need like a 5'11" wingspan for this thing. So out of spite, I honestly might put it in low, but I'm also a big classical music fan, so bottom of decent. Alright, next we have Karma Assis. So this is the low start to the famous Karma in Fontainebleau. Karma is, you know, as classic as it gets. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to do this just because of how cooked my wrists are and how slopey it is. But a low start to Karma would be really cool, and it looks really hard. I'm not even sure where you start, if it's like below and to the right or if it's like to the left. Actually, scratch that. I just remembered that Bryce Viola actually recently FA'd the left version, so this project has to be the right version, which does look like the better of the two lines. By the way, Bryce, where's the King of Condor footy? I've been edging myself to the thought of that video for far too long at this point. We're putting Karma Assist into the very top of heavy aura. Moving on, we have Solitary Days Low. Now this is one of the most aesthetic boulders I've ever seen in my life. The video of Clement doing Permanent Midnight Low was one of my favorites from the Mellow Rock games. I think the main issue is it's a little bit contrived because Permanent Midnight, you just go a little bit to the right and it makes it like a bit easier than going straight up, which is what Solitary Days is. But the line is like so damn good, and I really hope it gets done. But I don't think it's like quite pure enough to go into the maximal aura tier. So we're gonna put it at the very top somewhere of heavy aura. Now we get to one of the hardest things on this list probably, and that is linking devolution into the process. Now obviously, even though this is like absolutely nails beyond belief and it's on Grandpa Peabody, but I feel like if this ever gets done, it kind of is gonna signal the limits of outdoor bouldering are like coming to an end. Because once you make Grandpa Peabody into a spray wall, that's when I feel like we've kind of lost the plot a little bit, or people have just gotten so good that we can't even find like good pure lines to climb anymore, and so we're just gonna be doing bullshit. I feel like if it ever gets to this point, like the limits of hard bouldering are probably gonna be done on boards instead of like outside, because having a spray session on like Grandpa Peabody is like absolutely crazy. I've also heard like this is not even like the only link up you could do. You could theoretically link all the hard lines on this boulder, but I feel like a climber who could link all the hard lines on Grandpa Peabody would just kind of be like a board god at that point. Because it's so ridiculous, I think we're probably gonna put it into like decent, but it can't go higher than like low decent for me. Up next, we have the Lawrence Field Wall. Now this is like a super old project in the UK that was almost done back in 2011 by Miles Gibson. And I don't have any video of this, but the photos of this look absolutely incredible. Johnny Dawes also tried this and couldn't do it. This is actually by far the lowest graded project on this list. It's only supposedly around V13. But it is on slab, which probably means it's actually harder than Sisu. But I feel like this one proves that you don't have to have like a crazy hard graded thing for a project to still have a lot of aura. In my opinion, this comfortably goes into high-end heavy, just because it has like everything else going for it, and it's been a project for so long. Now we get to another big one, and that is Witness the Fitness. So this line, located in the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas, was obviously opened by Chris Sharma back in the day, and immediately one of the most famous boulder problems of all time. However, a lot of the holds have broken over the years. Now it's not really known whether or not it even goes at this point. And on top of that, area is completely closed for climbing. Now normally these things would be a detriment. Bad accessibility combined with chossy rock. But I think the fact that this was already like one of the most famous boulder problems of all time, and now it's like kind of on the edge of possibility, and it's probably gonna be like decades before this is even able to be tried again. I really feel like it's like this perfect storm of aura farming. So this might be a hot take, but I feel like this could be the second thing that goes into the generational tier, just because like the fact that it's now not really known whether or not it's even possible. But just imagine like decades into the future, this place finally is opened up and just like some insane kid comes along and like does it, and it's like V20. Like I think that would be so cool. Like that to me would feel like when Noble Boy verified Bloodlust, like many years after Bloodbath was already established. Up next, we have Charlatan Low. Now, Barefoot Chars recently did the stand to this boulder called Charlatan. Now, I actually think that this is one of the best Barefoot Chars boulders. It's incredibly pure bouldering strength. The movement really reminds me of like Black Beauty on the Moonboard. Also, the fact that he dislocated his shoulder on the top out and still came back and did it is kind of awesome. The main issue I have with the stand is I'm curious as to whether or not it's possible to just like traverse into the arete and make it like trivial instead of, if this is in fact somehow the easiest way to get up this boulder starting on these holds, then I actually think this boulder is like pretty high quality. But something tells me that you can just like kind of traverse and it'll be like V4. So the low to this, apparently you can add 2 more moves of V17 into the already like V17 2 mover that he did, which honestly would just be insane, and it would probably be like hard V19 or something like that. But this is one that I'm pretty confident one day will go by some insane freak. I feel like I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt, and for some reason it would be like really hard to like traverse into the arete. And if that's the case, I honestly definitely think it belongs in like somewhere in maximal aura, because you know, a 4 move V19 is just mind-boggling to think about. But if it is actually just like really easy to traverse into the arete and climb it there, then it definitely, I think, falls kind of hard. But it is one of the only standalone boulders on this list, and the fact that it's also one of the hardest, I think putting it in maximal might be fair. We also have Chocolate Jesus Sit. Now, with a name like that, this can't go lower than Heavy Aura. I mean, Chocolate Jesus Sit is an elite name if I've ever heard of one. The V13 stand is super good, and I know a lot of world-class climbers spend a lot of time in Wild Basin, and the fact that it's never been done makes me think it's both really hard and also a really good line. I think the middle to low of maximal aura seems fair. Next we get to El Cobrador del Flash. Low start. There's really not much information about this boulder except for Jorge Diaz-Rullo projecting it in one of his videos. The stand that goes at V14 actually looks quite good, but the issue is that the start of the low seems incredibly contrived. It's like on very not obvious holds. It's not even a sit start, and it also looks like establishing is the crux. So I really think this is kind of a stinker, to be honest. We're putting this in the low aura. Now we get to another big boy, and that is Shadowplay in the UK. Now, if you don't know the story about this boulder, basically this guy named John Gaskins, also known as the G, who's an incredibly strong climber. He's claimed some extraordinary ascents over the years on both boulders and routes, but when asked about any of the moves on these climbs, he kind of just says like, I honestly think this guy's a legend. Like, I don't know of anybody who can commit to the bit quite like John Gaskins can. Shadowplay is a thing he supposedly did and called V15, but then like 20 years later, like Will Bosey and Aiden Roberts tried it, and they both think it's like way harder than V17. Maybe the G is just too strong for his own good. This boulder actually reminds me a lot of like Fermat's last theorem, where like Fermat is like, oh, I have a solution to this problem, but I can't write it down in the margins of my page. And then it takes like a Herculean effort, like hundreds of years later, to actually solve the problem. I feel like this actually might happen with this, and I really hope this one day does get done. I think because the story behind it, and because John Gaskins is my one true GOAT, Shadowplay is going to be the third boulder making it into the generational tier. Here we get to the last of the Barefoot Charles projects, and this one is genuinely peak Barefoot Charles, the La Barbiere project. I've heard that this little bump that he does can maybe be considered like the hardest move ever done, which like definitely good for Barefoot Charles, but like what the fuck are we doing here? Like look at the hold he's bumping off of. That should actually be illegal.
That's fucking illegal.
This is like a pixel perfect bump right here. This is one of those boulders that like there's not a single person on earth besides Barefoot Charles that could actually get psyched on this problem. Overall, the line really does not look striking or inspiring at all to me, but just because of how ridiculous it is, again, like a lot of these, I think I'll put it into like the middle of heavy aura. Alright, lastly we have this weird crack thing in Bishop. I have no idea what this is called, but again, randomly appeared in like a Ross Fulkerson video a while back, and I have no information about this at all. So I'm just gonna put it somewhere in the middle of decent tier because the line doesn't look all that great, but having a V17 in Bishop would be really cool. So lastly, I just wanted to go through some boulders that I've seen mentioned online, but I can't find any footage or information on. The first is Blistering Barnacles V16 in New Zealand. We have Pain des Sucres in France. We have the Freya Sit project, Yabo Prow project, Impossible Groove, Gia Roof at Black Rocks, and the Blunt Arete next to Jumping on a Beetle, also in Black Rocks. There's also the Chevin Ultra project in Yorkshire. And also on a podcast, I think Adam Shahar said that there's a one move V15 Ben Kim jump move in Connecticut. Yeah, let me know if you have any more information. If you made it this far, I'd really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. I low-key think I put too many boulders in here and this video took forever to make, but I hope you enjoyed and I'll see you back here soon.